Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to welcome everyone. We'll be getting started here really shortly. I'm just going to give a couple more task force members an opportunity to join before we kick off the meeting. So thank you all for your attendance, and please stand by. All right, great. I think we can go ahead and get started. We are going to get started this afternoon with an opening prayer. We are really honored to have Governor Lucero with us today. He's the governor of the Pueblo of Zia. And so, Governor, at this time, we welcome you to start off our meeting properly with an opening prayer, and also provide any opening remarks that you would like to provide at this time. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay. Men also tutti kutte tutti sanoi suostumassa shaki out. Ushu tutti heti kuitse. Tuo tutti näichenne tutti satru saatte satru jametta. Tuo tutti mashis tutti taapshu tutti hemme tutti sikuna tutti nan tsuku saatte heati sikuna kuntas tutti sanien tek tutti ku saatte tutti kaitru. Satranne stania ki kootia como. Tuo tutti heti kuitse. Tuo tutti Majani shuni tuti stiatsun tuve kikpuku hahtini natsi tuti istiumi chame tuti trashan osho tuti hetku tuti nechane tuti sutru tuti umat utya tuti nya tuti shkun osho tuti sutra jamata he tuti mashtemi tuti nyawatani tuti kutru sata tuti sutra kachatani tuti nechane tuti sutru satu nutra tuti sna tuti manakayatra sana achin tuti samun o ya pehuchani tuzi kutana tuzi hosa suksum eti kuitsa tuzi pacha hunshka unani tuzi jasha heuka shiani tuzi hiwi to sama kasan tuzi skutur tu apaitam tuzi sitan ya kusin hansti hika mota astaso sisha sho hekam yecham tanashu tuzi naichani tuzi sitru si hopa tuzi hashta meko me tuzi nahpuitani tuzi kutru tuzi sitra tamete kachutani tuzi naichani tuzi heati sukana kunta tuzi na tuzi kusate tuzi nyatri tuzi sitronte. Good afternoon, and I just opened the meeting and everything, and I just opened it up, and hopefully we have a open mind and an open heart, so then that way we have these women that are missing and murdered, so then that way we have a clear mind on how we're gonna approach this type of issue. So that was kind of my prayer, and have everybody and good blessings, so then that way we have a good conversation on this issue. And thank you again. I appreciate it, and real humbled that you asked me to do the invocation. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Lucero. And, I do want to welcome you to our future task force meetings. I will send you the future invitations, and we welcome your participation. So with that, I will turn it over now to Secretary Trujillo, who is the chair of our task force, for some welcome remarks.
Thank you, Stephanie. Makwam, Hina Makima, Kiremba, Tetaikam Tipawe, Takam, Alan Trujillo. I am the Secretary of the Indian Affairs Department. Herkem, Tevide, Lucero, Governor Lucero, for your blessing and setting the intention so that we can come together and have a good meeting, well-intentioned in service of those that aren't here with us and who were here to assist. And so I just want to thank you for that and grounding us. I'm deeply honored to be here with you all today. I hope that this day finds you well, and that you and your loved ones in the communities that you come from are well, safe, and happy. I'm joining you from the indigenous homelands of my tribe, Sandia Pueblo and Isleta Pueblos, here in Albuquerque. First, I really want to take the time to acknowledge the contributions of our task force members, those of you who graciously agreed to return, and those that are new to the task force, our state representatives and other participants that have really truly brought attention and awareness to this pressing public safety crisis here in New Mexico far before this task force was convened due to the legislation that was in place. Because of your efforts and your expertise, and first and foremost, I think your heart, we are here today continuing to build on what we've collectively accomplished. And while I'm very proud of this, I know, and we all know, there is so much more that must be done. And so I sincerely thank you for your contributions and for your future contributions as we continue our journey in this new phase of the task force. As many of you know, on May 5th this year, Governor Lujan Grisham, under her leadership, signed Executive Order 2021-13, which established this new phase of the task force. She knows and understands and recognizes the importance of this work that we're gathered in. And so we're tasked with developing a state response plan that addresses the long-term solutions to the MMIWR incidents that are occurring in our state. And this response plan will be presented to appropriate legislative interim committees and the governor as soon as possible. I'm filled with so much hope because we have an incredible opportunity to make lasting change. And today we'll begin that process of determining how to expand on the task force recommendations and discuss what implementation will look like. So in each of the 3 subcommittees on data, systems, and community impact, you will all have a chance to get to know each other, to do introductions, to have focused discussions, and set a schedule for the subcommittee that you're participating in. Our hope is that each subcommittee will provide final recommendations that will go to the proper agency, the legislature, executive, and judicial, with a plan of implementation. And I also invite you to think about the long-term sustainability of this work. What can we do to make sure that this doesn't live in only a task force? What type of funding might we need, and institutional change that needs to take place? So all in all, let us continue to come together, to collaborate, to build partnerships with each other, to hear each other with open minds and hearts, to learn from each other, to support each other, because each one of us, by being here today, has taken on the incredible responsibility to continue working toward creating safe spaces for our Indigenous relatives and to bring peace and healing to our relatives. As always, I recognize that this work is heavy and it's a heavy load to carry. So please continue to take time today for yourself and know that we are here for each other and our loved ones impacted by this crisis. I want to thank you. You're making a difference. And I also especially want to thank Stephanie Salazar, Eldred Lasanse, and Geneva Vicente, who are part of the Indian Affairs Department staff, Sherry Katnack and Aurora Martinez, because through their efforts, we were able to bring this together. So with that, Stephanie, I'll turn it back over to you, and I look forward to learning from all of you today and being part of the discussions. Herkem.
Thank you, Secretary Trujillo. Now we're going to transition. We have a video message from Congresswoman Melanie Stansberry. She was originally scheduled to join us today to make some welcome remarks, but we do have a recording that we'll pull up, and I just wanted to acknowledge the Congresswoman for her leadership. She was one of our original bill sponsors to House Bill 278, which started this work back in 2019, and so it's really again, another honor to have her here today to share a few words with us from Washington, D.C. So Sherry, you can go ahead and pull that up. Thank you. And as you all know, if you've been in one of our meetings before, this is where we always run into struggles, is getting our videos to play. So appreciate your patience. Just give us a moment and we'll get that pulled up.
Hello, everyone, and greetings from Washington, D.C. This is Congresswoman Melanie Stansberry, and I so wish that I could be there with you all today at the task force, but I wanted to send my greetings and my well wishes and to let you all know that my heart is with you, and I stand ready to be a partner and a collaborator in the crucial work ahead of addressing the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women and relatives. I know how difficult this work is, and I want to say a special thank you to all of our survivors and advocates and people who are working in communities across the state and the country to address this issue. I also want to extend my thanks to the leadership of our tribal nations and tribal leaders who are working on this issue, as well as our Secretary of Indian Affairs, Lynn Trujillo, our governor, of course, and all of the staff at Indian Affairs who have poured their hearts into this important work over the last year. And finally, I want to also acknowledge the leadership of several of our legislators who helped to kick off this work in 2019, Representative Andrea Romero, Derek Lente, Wanda Johnson. Thank you for helping to co-sponsor the bill that made this task force possible. And I was also a proud co-sponsor of that bill in the legislature. We, of course, all know why we're here today, which is that the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous relatives is affecting communities across New Mexico and across the country, and that our communities are facing these disproportionate impacts of violence that are rooted in history, they're rooted in the complex dynamics of what happens inside of communities, and also the challenges that our system faces in delivering services and protecting the safety of individuals. And when things do happen, the jurisdictional issues of finding people, investigating these cases, and bringing justice to families and survivors. We must address this crisis. I want to thank my predecessor, former Congresswoman and now Secretary of the Interior, Deb Haaland, for her incredible leadership in helping to elevate this issue to the national level. She is already doing incredible work with our president and at the Department of Interior to elevate this issue, to make sure that there are resources available and that we are engaging collaboratively with tribal governments and local stakeholders to bring justice and address the root causes. As your Congresswoman, I want you to know that this issue is something that I care deeply about, that I am deeply dedicated to ensuring that I work in partnership and collaboration to help lift up the voices and stories and experiences and the needs of people in our communities, and to ensure that we are bringing resources home and collaboration from the federal government with our tribal nations, with our local governments, and that we are empowering people on the ground to address this issue. We also must address the jurisdictional issues, and I'm also deeply dedicated to working with my colleagues here in Congress to make sure that we do so both through the Violence Against Women Act and other legislation that may be needed to address jurisdictional issues and resource issues. So let me just say in closing, I know that this work is so difficult, and especially for those that have personal experiences. My heart is with you. I am so deeply saddened by every story that I hear. Your stories are powerful. Your stories need to be heard. And just know that I and my staff and many, many, many more out there are here to support and work in collaboration with you all. And with that, I just want to say thank you for doing this incredible work, and I hope to see you all soon. All right, thank you, everyone.
And we just want to thank the Congresswoman for her time. We know that she's extremely busy, and so to have her join us today by video is really means a lot. Right now, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the leader. Excuse me. I want to acknowledge the tribal leaders who have joined us today. We've heard already from Governor Lucero of the Pueblo of Zia, and I also see that we have President Nez of the Navajo Nation with us today as well. At this point, President Nez, I just want to acknowledge you and thank you for joining us. And if you wanted to say a few words, I'd like to provide you with that opportunity.
Oh yeah, Stephanie, and thank you, Secretary Trujillo, Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham, and all the task force members for your hard work. I know that this is a transition from a smaller task force to a larger task force with various subgroups, and we're looking forward to having input and learning a lot as well from the other tribal leaders that are a part of this this discussion. The missing and murdered Indigenous women and relatives. And as you know, our Navajo Nation First Lady, Cecilia Nez, has been a part of the first group and now into the second group. And we want to congratulate all that are here today on your appointment. And we look forward to, finding ways to get through these bureaucratic processes when it comes to Indian country. As many of you know, there was a walk here on the Navajo Nation for to find LMA Begay, and her family has done a tremendous job in highlighting and also bringing attention to the missing relatives that we have here on the Navajo Nation. And I just ask for continued prayers for those families, and resources is always a slow or less here in Indian country than it is out off the nation. But we are working with everyone that's involved in these cross-jurisdictional issues. And we appreciate Council Delegate Amber Crotty from the legislative branch for being a part of the movement that's happening here on Navajo in the Southwest, and our chapter president for Crown Point, Rita Capitan, as well, for her leadership and willingness to be a part of the work group. And from the Division of Public Safety, we also have one of the dispatchers that has also been recommended to be a part of the work group, Resita. And We are on our budget here at the Navajo Nation. We just included another 500,000. I know a lot of items that have come to our attention from the Division of Public Safety is that many of these calls are alcohol and drug related, and we are infusing some funds into our drug and alcohol task force. And of course, as schools begin to reopen, a lot of effort in letting our young people or students know, what to do in terms of missing people, and also to teach them to be proactive as well in their communities. So we look forward to that, and I appreciate again everyone being on the call, all the tribal leaders that are on the call. We thank you for your valuable input on this very important topic that has come to the forefront in Indian country. Our prayers continue to go out to find our missing loved ones. So thank you, Secretary Trujillo and Stephanie, for giving me an opportunity to say a few words. So God bless each and every one of you, and we look forward to a productive meeting today. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, President Nez, for that message. At this time, I also just want to acknowledge a few others who are attending today. I'll just state your name, then we'll move on with the agenda, but I do want to acknowledge Representative Pamela Herndon for joining us, as well as Senator Linda Lopez. We really appreciate your time today at this meeting. As President Nez already stated, we have Council Delegate Amber Knezba Karate, as well as First Lady Nez. So thank you all for joining us today. And at this time, I'm going to pull up a PowerPoint, and we'll go ahead and get into some of the meeting objectives for today. So welcome everyone. I want to just start today's meeting with a look at the task force directives. And so I pulled this directly from the executive order that was signed. And just to kind of remind us about why we're here today, what are some of the objectives that we've been called to accomplish during our time together. And so just a few things I want to note. So through our subcommittees, we are here today and we'll be meeting monthly for the next several months to develop a state response plan. This plan will advise the executive on any sort of initiatives, programs, and policy changes that might be required to implement the task force report recommendations. So we will be working off of the task force report, and all of you should have received a link to our MMIWR clearinghouse. This has the report as well as meeting minutes and other resources that we think will be important for you to use as we start meeting and to just understand the scope of the problem, but also the work that has been done to date. What we want to do is to build off of that work and really just in bringing more representatives, more experts to the table to look at what has already been developed, and then to consider through policy or legislation how these recommendations can be implemented and by whom. And so today we're here to start that discussion, and we'll kind of go into on this next slide and talk through that a little bit more. So getting started, we're here today to work on the state response plan, utilizing the 2020 recommendations as our starting place. And some of the questions that I guess I want to pose to all of you now, and when you break out into your group, you can always revisit this slide and have our staff pull this up. but think about how these recommendations can be implemented. So we spent a lot of our first 2 years as a task force really trying to identify the what, what is the problem? What's the scope of this problem? And now I think we're at a stage where while we still have a lot of questions, and you'll see that, and maybe those are some of the areas that require additional work, additional research and resources as we move forward, but really the how of, how can we get to a place where any state department or any legislator can pull up these recommendations and have a roadmap of how this can get carried out. These recommendations that we have, they may need to be prioritized. There's, likely some of these recommendations that need to be revised or even deleted. So we give you that authority in your subcommittee, that authority to really think about, how this can be carried out and what makes sense as we start putting together a state response plan. So I want to address the timeline because we really are on a tight timeline. The legislative session, the 2022 legislative session is right around the corner. A few things to keep in mind is that, August of this year, state budget drafts are due. So if there are some budget recommendations, those are things that should be considered immediately as you're able to. And we know that, even if we miss this session, if there's some recommendations that we can't get in, these are things that we will look to next year's session to address. But as we're able to, and we would really request that our subcommittee chairs keep this in mind, that we want to get these all of our recommendations to our legislators timely so that we make their jobs a little bit easier, but we also increase the success of getting these recommendations actually implemented and passed next session. So another thing that's coming up is between September 30th and October 1st, the Indian Affairs Department will be presenting to a joint meeting between the interim Indian Affairs Committee, these are legislative committees, and the Legislative Health and Human Services Committee. At this point, the committees have requested that we give an initial report on our recommendations to date. So, and again, that's coming up really quickly. And then we'll have another opportunity to present any additional proposals between October 19th and October 20th. And so there'll be another meeting of the Indian Affairs Committee, and they invited us to present any recommendations at that time as well. So some meeting considerations, kind of taking a step back from the logistics and thinking about, how we show up to this meeting today, how we carry ourselves. As Secretary Trujillo stated, we want to thank you all for, just your heart and in being here today. It took a lot just to get us to this point today, and all of you have already, submitted a nomination form, your resume, a statement of interest. You've given a lot of yourself already, and I want to acknowledge you and thank you for that. We're here today, and I think for all of us, it requires us to be courageous, to be honest, and to know when to step up, and then also to know when to take a step back and listen to others in the room. So just a few things to be mindful about as we meet. Just be mindful of the pronouns that you're using, your word choices. We want this to be a safe space for everybody. We want everyone to feel welcome. And that requires all of us to be sensitive to the needs and the experiences of everyone who shares this space with us. Another thing is just remember that we are all still learning every day. I am apologizing for mistakes I've made or things that I didn't quite think through as carefully as I should have. And so, we need to be humble, but also be gentle in how we correct each other. Self-care is also so essential. Take breaks as needed. These are heavy topics. These are difficult conversations. And I think when you start to feel that overwhelming feeling, take some deep breaths, drink some water. And if you feel triggered at any point today, Please text this number. Also, Eldred Lasance will be putting some resources into the chat if you need any immediate support. So just a quick recap of where we've been and kind of where we are today. And this is another for your information, because I think it will also help you think about the recommendations that come out of your subcommittee. One big thing I want to point out on this slide is that the Indian Affairs Department did receive a reoccurring appropriation during the 2021 legislative session. That reoccurring appropriation is for $57,000. And I want to make note of that because that is a resource that is available at this time. You might, in your discussion find that that's not enough, or maybe, additional resources are needed. But just keep that in mind, as that is something that's available. And if there's a good way to utilize this small pot of funding, we welcome those recommendations as part of the recommendations that your committee will share out with the group. A quick step back and looking at kind of the general structure of the task force. We have our 3 subcommittees. Everyone has been assigned to a subcommittee. I've received several emails of folks who don't recall being assigned to a subcommittee. So if you didn't, just know that I assigned you to a committee, and we'll go through those assignments in the next slide. But if you would like to change that today, all you need to do when you get assigned to your subcommittee is to come back into the main meeting and then just put it in the chat where you would like to go. You can also, if you see your name on a subcommittee now and would like to change it, you can also just put it in the chat now, and our staff, Sherry and Aurora, will take note of that and make sure you get to the correct room. But essentially, this is the system that we have in place. You'll see that the 3 chairs will all be reporting back up to Secretary Trujillo. So we do have a request today that subcommittees nominate a chairperson for your committee. And here I'll just kind of go through some of the responsibilities on the next slide. But what I want to point out here is that everyone will report back up to Secretary Trujillo, and the steering committee members, which will include, we want the steering committee to include our legislators so that they can continue to advise us and make sure that we're meeting some of these deadlines that are coming up quickly, but also just to advise us on policy recommendations or any other recommendations that are coming out. So the responsibilities of a subcommittee chair, I just want to run through this quickly in case this question comes up once we go into the breakout rooms. Subcommittee chairs, we do ask that you attend these regularly scheduled meetings, that you be at every meeting of the subcommittee as best as you're able to. We know that things come up, but if you can dedicate that time, we know that's a big request to ask of everyone on this call. But we do want that person there so that we have a point of contact, that, there's one person we can plan and organize with. And, it might turn out that you might have 2, might have a co-chair, a chair and a co-chair. I think we're fine with that. However, your committee decides to have that point of contact. That's essentially what the responsibilities of the chairperson are. We will also be sending out some assignments with deadlines, and assignments is, just a loose word there. That's the best word that I can think of right now, but just some tasks that we are asking you to complete and report back, just so that we can continue to maintain this momentum that we have. And I should also note here that facilitation of the discussion is also requested. We're in the process of hiring task force coordinators who will really serve and be the right-hand person for a subcommittee chair. And so you won't be doing this alone. We will have coordinators who are being brought on to support this work and this effort. So just know that while it seems like a big responsibility, you will have support of the department, of Secretary Trujillo, and our coordinators who will be hopefully on with this task force in the next couple weeks or few weeks. So these are some of the initial assignments to the committees. You'll take, if you look here, this is the data subcommittee. For today's session, we will have Geneva Vicente joining this meeting and facilitating. And we also have Linda Thompson, who's volunteered her time to support us. The asterisks that you see down here, these are advisory members and folks who have agreed to support the task force. And so we're very grateful for your participation and willingness to assist us. This subcommittee, we have the systems subcommittee. I will be supporting the subcommittee today, and I will be asking for a brave volunteer to support me during this meeting so that we can get some notes taken and report back out to the larger group. For all of these, if you designated on your initial nomination form what you were interested in, we automatically put you into this committee. Otherwise, I did take a look at your resume and did try to make an informed decision about where you might best be able to contribute. But this is not set in stone. So if you would like to switch to a different subcommittee, just as I said earlier, let us know. And finally, our Community Impact Subcommittee. For today's meeting, Eldred Lasance will be facilitating, and we have Jessica Gidegakuns-Smith. I apologize if I said any of that wrong, but thank you so much, Jessica, for stepping up at such short notice to assist us. Okay, and so some of the tasks for today's meeting, as soon as we go into our breakout rooms, we ask that each member go around and provide an introduction. If you can introduce yourself, the agency that you're representing, and talk a little bit about why you wanted to join this work and some of the resources that you're bringing to this meeting. Again, as I stated, you'll be also designating a subcommittee chairperson and deciding on a monthly meeting time within the first 2 weeks of every month that your committee will meet. So the purpose of this is that we do want to have scheduled meeting times for everybody. I think it just makes it easier and there's less confusion. That's also something we heard from our original task force, that having regularly set meeting times is something that allows them to plan. So we want to make sure that that can get done today so that everyone has a clear understanding of when they'll be meeting next month. So as I said, this is in the first 2 weeks of every month. So you should plan on meeting as early as August next week with your subcommittee if you choose a time within the first week of August. But again, this will be your regularly scheduled meeting time for the next several months, unless your committee chooses otherwise at a later time. You'll also be reviewing the final recommendation. So yesterday in the email I sent out to the task force, there was an Excel spreadsheet that broke down the task force recommendations for every subcommittee. And so if you have time today, we would ask that you as a group start looking through that spreadsheet and thinking about how your committee can most efficiently complete this table. There's a lot of information in there, and some of the tabs you might want to change if they don't work for your committee. There might be some things that you don't like in the table that might need to be adjusted. So take that time today and really think as a group about how you want to utilize this framework, or if this framework is something that won't work for your committee. Really start to think if there's a better way that we can do this. And start identifying what research or resources you might need. So as you go through the recommendations, I'm sure a lot of questions will come up, as it's happened in the past. Write those down, and I would ask the subcommittees to send this Excel spreadsheet back to me as it's updated, and we'll try to think of a more efficient way to share that information out as well. But for now, send that to me if you're able to, with any comments or recommendations on the template. If there's any questions that you have out of today or additional resources that you might need, please reach out to us as soon as possible so we can accommodate you before your next meeting. And we do have some public attendees present today. Thank you all for joining, for carving out some of your personal time to be with us today. I will ask that we give all of the public an opportunity at the end of the meeting to comment. So before we reconvene at 4:40, if you can open the floor and receive any public comments prior to us reconvening at 4:40. And finally, this is just one last announcement I want to make before we move on. The Indian Affairs Department was contacted last month by the Second Judicial District Attorney, Raul Torres. He is looking to create within the Second Judicial District Attorney's Office and their Crime Strategies Unit a specific cold case unit that will review unsolved MMIWR cases. His office would like to present this initiative to the task force and perhaps get any feedback or advice or input from this group on the structure of that unit, what they'll be looking into, and any other recommendations to their office. This was a request that came in, and I just wanted to share that with the task force. So we will follow up on this to determine scheduling, but this will be essentially on a volunteer basis. Anyone who would like to participate, and maybe that's another matter that you discuss is within your subcommittee today, is if you will designate someone to join, or if we just continue to allow anyone who's interested to join on this informational presentation and provide any feedback at that time. And just a reminder that our report, our final report, and all of the additional resources are on our clearinghouse. And there's some links here, and we will send this PowerPoint out to everyone. But with that, I just want to say thank you all for your time and attention. My contact information is here. You all have it. So if anything comes up, if you have any recommendations for us, please reach out and do not hesitate. So I'm going to stop my share. And at this point, we're going to transition over, and I'm going to turn the floor over to Carmela Roy-Ball. She's one of our task force one of our prior project coordinators, and she did excellent work with us on analyzing data, trying to get our data initiative complete. And so for those of you who are not familiar, one effort that we wanted to do this year was to complete our surveys to tribal law enforcement and tribal service providers. We really wanted to hear from tribal employees who are doing this work in their communities about the challenges that exist, some of the barriers that they're facing. And so Carmela led that task and tried to get as much feedback as we could from the various tribes that were included in that survey. And so I'm going to turn it over to Carmela, but before I do that, I do just want to make an announcement that we are at that point in our agenda where we would kindly ask the media to stop your participation. This meeting is now in a closed session. The public is still welcome to participate, but in terms of media, we would ask that you kindly leave, and thank you for joining us for the time that you were able to. So with that, Carmela, I'm going to make you host, and you can go ahead and share your screen.
Thank you, Stephanie. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here and present data today. So I'm going to run through, I have a pretty brief PowerPoint, and I'll run through it, and then I just want to be a resource so that you are all welcome to ask any questions. The data collected throughout this process is much more than I can explain in 10 or 15 minutes, but I want to show a highlight and even give maybe some points moving forward, or what data collection might look like and kind of where we left off. But at any time, I really want this just to kind of be an open dialogue, so that anytime you can stop and ask about any of the data points or pieces that I share. And I apologize for any typos in this PowerPoint. And I did want to make it so that it's a resource to you all. I will send the PowerPoint to Stephanie, so that if you guys would like to look over it after, you're welcome to. If you would like to use it, or if you would like an area to be more developed, I'm also willing to do that. So I'm a resource to the task force. So again, my name is Carmela Roybal. I'm from Okewingit, and it's just been a pleasure working with the task force. So I really want to thank you all for the work that you're going to carry on. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So give me a few moments. Let's see here. And I am not tech savvy, so you're going to have to, I apologize for any issues here. So let's see. Okay, is it cut off? Is it okay? So the primary goals of the data collection initially were to identify the number of cases in New Mexico. Also identify the number of open and closed and pending, to get an idea of the gravity and the depth of this issue in the state. There were other points for the data. The data can be used for policy recommendations, support legislation. It can be used for a lot of different areas and items. And so the data we collected was pretty holistic. But again, it's a very baseline, and there were a lot of limitations, and we can talk about that. But despite all of the limitations, the data that was pulled was, I was kind of in shock, and we'll get there. So for those that are new to MMIW, we're kind of thinking through violence against women and violence against Indigenous women it's really a social determinant of health. So if you look back through, and I really advise everyone to look back through the report and through all the data pieces that are part of the clearinghouse now, because they really talk about the number of cases. This data is a little bit old, right? It's really hard to find data for the year 2021 or 2020. So the numbers that I'm going to show have increased tremendously in certain areas, but it's not collected in here. But this is going to give kind of that holistic vision of it. So if you look at national statistics, right, Indigenous women are murdered at a rate 10 times higher than all other racial and ethnic populations. 10 times higher. So this is violence against women, Indigenous women, is a social determinant of their health, of their lifespan. In the data, we're really focused on women, but I also have data in some of the reports that shows what that violence looks like as teenagers or even children. So just keeping that in mind, like other areas that we really want to hone in on to kind of understand where the linkages between all of this, right? So 56% of Indigenous women experience physical violence by an intimate partner, 66% psychological aggression, 32% of sexual assault cases occur on reservations, 57% occur in urban areas. So this is national. When we get to New Mexico, we're going to see, and I don't have a lot of that data included in this PowerPoint, but some of it is in the report. So numbers that need to be extracted thinking forward is the types of violence, right? Sexual violence, aggression, and what does that look like? And what does it look like in rural areas versus urban areas? So when we go to New Mexico in the Southwest, let's see, Native American women in the state have the highest rate of homicide again, across all racial and ethnic groups. This data point on the bottom is something that really drives a lot of the research that I do in general. So it's Native American female toddlers, infants, 1 to 4 years of age, have a premature death rate. And when you compare these to their white counterparts, you can see the difference in this data statistic. So when I wanted to go back and really think through, when does this start, or how are we missing, and why are Native American females experiencing this versus males? And a lot of this violence and these issues, they began very early on. So there's this merits so much exploration, but it's really food for thought. And I think after this presentation, you will have more questions and answers, but definitely points to start. So we located this data and we went through and IPRA'd 23 agencies across the state of New Mexico. Only 2 counties provided their data. So this is another area that needs to be explored, right? McKinley County and San Juan County. Granted, these counties don't represent the entire state of New Mexico, but when you look at the differences in missing cases or murder cases, you're going to see that there is great disparities between tribal indigenous populations and the rest of the state. This is an immense disparity. So we know that some of the issues related to why the numbers are different or even undercounted. Okay, I want to talk about data undercounts. Throughout this entire project, we have one of the greatest limitations is the undercounts. So either individuals are missing, they're racially misclassified, they're not counted in this data. So just keep in mind that the numbers are different or higher, right? And that's something that you'll find throughout data just working in Indian country in general. So the numbers are skewed. And this data here doesn't have anything related to tribal enforcement. These are just counties. So this alone illustrates that there's differences in the data that's collected and that we don't have the whole picture of the state. We just have a glimpse of what it might be. So thinking through discrepancies in the data and how important this is, and for the task force and moving forward to really think about what the baseline would look like. Nationally, and this is 2017, this number has grown immensely. It's estimated around 7,000 plus. There are certain regions that have experienced within the last 6 months in New Mexico have reported 50 or 60 missing cases. So these numbers are growing. This is a very living, and these numbers here are just kind of your baseline. So now in 2021, moving to 20, you will have thousands of women added to this number. So if you look at nationally, missing and murdered, right, these are reported in New Mexico. Originally, these are discrepancies in the data, and we'll show you how much it grew, is that the clearinghouse reported 92 missing persons between 2014. But when the task force IPRA data, and we were able to collect data from Albuquerque, this is just to give an example, there's more in the report, we found that between 2014 and 2019, the same time frame, there were 660 missing persons cases reported. There was no information how many were solved, how many were followed, how many were transferred, and this number is men and women together. This kind of is, drove a lot of our other questions looking forward. So in the IPRA data, even though we didn't have every county, this is really telltale of kind of the issue going on here. So with Gallup, between 2014 and 2019, reported 675 missing, 76% were all indigenous. Farmington, you can see the numbers the same. And then when we get to Albuquerque, we have a breakdown of the male and female. But if we compare them all, 2014 to 2019, this number is much significantly higher than has ever been reported or placed into the clearinghouse data. So you're taking this moving forward, really thinking about systems or where this is going, or if it was, you know, moving forward, how are they going to be reported, and kind of where are we at. Then we went into survey data, and I'll answer more questions as we kind of go forward. I just wanted to move through this rather quickly. So the survey data, we wanted to find out, you know, the barriers, or how tribes were dealing with MMIW and the resources they needed. Was it funding? And we had a select amount that actually participated or were able to participate in the survey. And despite that limitation, there was a lot of information, really great information that was provided. Out of the few that participated, only one was tracking missing and murdered women, or even had the capacity to do so. Respondents, and this is tribal and non-tribal, there wasn't a classification process. So across the state, across all of the different surveys that we had, whether it was tribal or non-tribal, there wasn't a process to classify people correctly, right? Many abstained from answering the question. I found that very interesting because that kind of skews a number. They reported that their greatest barrier was the lack of personnel. So I wanted to do more. This is very quantitative, and I did take a little bit of time to try to understand qualitatively through interviews and talking with some of the tribal police. And what they were saying is that maybe some of the villages, for example, in northern New Mexico, did not have police officers. They were sharing one BIA officer for half of the state or a quarter. So they didn't have officers or personnel. They were talking about if all of those other agencies are really short law enforcement, they were trying to partner amongst themselves to bring law enforcement. So if somebody did call for an emergency, there just wouldn't be a person to go ahead and attend to that. So it could be a call for anything, a call for domestic violence or a traffic accident, and there just wouldn't be personnel to even attend to that. So there is a huge, this is, I guess, a serious issue across the state, and it's really impacting the officers. So even those that are able to be there, they're so limited on personnel. So that was something they really talked about. And the second leading barrier that they indicated in the survey was the lack of coordination with jurisdiction. So jurisdictional issues came up repeatedly. They came up in the survey, they came up in the qualitative, just, speaking with officers, what is this like? And a lot of it, somebody would make a call, it might take several hours, maybe even to get back and to address. And so time is always of the essence, especially when we're dealing with MMIW work, right? So I think those were really important and key, and there's more that's in a follow-up report. Let's see, this is just some of the ideas that they shared, right? Their recommendations, tools for outreach, even social media. Some of the law enforcement, as well as the service providers that work with tribal areas, talked about using things like Facebook or social media to help locate family members or individuals, or that was kind of one of their resources, especially now during the pandemic. They were able to use that to kind of locate people. So this was really interesting. Training, technical assistance. Most people were trained only on trafficking and nothing else related to this, especially around trauma. Let's see, policies. Most did not have policies around MMIW work, and we're asking for assistance for that. And next we have the service providers survey, and the same. So limited personnel, these are some of the greatest gaps and barriers in their service. Shortages in shelters, temporary housing. They didn't have sane examination kits, no telephone or web-based services. So a lot of these are contributing factors. It's much more, this is very surface level, but resources, location. going through data, looking at what they were reporting, not having enough counselors or people working in these areas. Some of the agencies that provided, or some of the tribes that provided, they gave us the go-ahead to conduct the survey. They didn't have personnel working in general. So maybe social services wasn't in place and they were lacking 6 or 7 individuals. So basic staffing throughout the country, Northern, is a major issue. So even if we were able to survey them, there wasn't anyone there working in those positions. So lots of vacancies within, just in general, are really affecting. And there are, I want to say, certain parts of the state have limited counseling in general. So there's just a lack of state, and it's really hitting tribes. And I think that is all I have. So if there's any,
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to cut you off.
oh
I
no,
just wanted to tell you thank you. Thank you for providing that overview. And I'm sure there are a lot of questions for Carmela on that presentation, but what we will do is get that out to everybody. We'll send that after the meeting, and hopefully you can think through that a little bit more. And as Carmela said, she'll continue to be a resource to our task force if we have some follow-up questions related to the data. So thank you, Carmela, for that. Really appreciate your time and all of the work that you've done for the task force. Now, real quickly, I just want to acknowledge that we are behind schedule, but I'm going to turn it over to Denise Billy. She was another contractor. She was also the MMIP coordinator for New Mexico, but she was able to pull together some law enforcement mapping that we asked her to do. So through her work, she does have some key recommendations that she's going to share with the task force. And I'm going to unmute her now. Unfortunately, Denise, well, actually not unfortunately, fortunately, she is with her family right now, but she doesn't have the best service. So she was unable to join us by video. Denise, you can, there you go. Great. I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you, Madam Secretary Trujillo, for allowing me to provide some of my data collection from the law enforcement mapping. So what I did was I had reached out to law enforcement agencies, tribal law enforcement agencies, and I had asked to see the number of personnel that were SLEC certified, state certifications, that sort of thing, which would provide us at least some numbers on providing the numbers to, or at least getting an understanding that would support the policy and the discussions of the MMIW task force. So part of my recommendations and through my findings, I had determined that the 29, Indian country jurisdiction in itself is pretty much confusing, and especially in areas of checkerboards where both state, federal, and tribal agencies would respond to calls. So I believe a mutual aid agreement or a memorandum of understanding between neighboring law enforcement agencies would help in response to these calls. So the 29-111 agreement is basically the New Mexico state statute, which allows for the commissioning of tribal law enforcement officers to enforce state laws. So a lot of the tribal agencies, tribal law enforcement agencies, are not participants of the 29-111 based on some disagreements of funding that eventually reverts back to the state and not to the tribal government. So in your discussions, we would like to at least, turn the tables around and allow the commissioning of state police officers and other deputies, and have them tribally commissioned with their jurisdiction. So, as Carmela had mentioned earlier, there's some agencies have, and the large, vast land base, officers have to travel so many hours to respond to a call. So by allowing the tribal commissioning, it would allow state police who may be a lot closer to the area to respond to these calls. And so we would have the state police and the deputies to respond to these calls. And of course, they would have to go through trainings with the tribal agencies and learn their law. They have their own law and order codes. So they would just have to get training, and then any fees collected through citations or whatever, it would the revenue would be reverted back to the tribal offices or to the tribal government. And then training is another issue. Criminal, like I had said earlier, criminal country or criminal jurisdiction Indian country is pretty much confusing. So to continue the proper training to law enforcement agencies, and it doesn't matter if it's state police, the sheriff deputies, tribal agencies, and the training should also include judges at all levels, tribal, state, federal, and so they can be aware of the issues that law enforcement are facing because of the jurisdiction. Most of these, the U.S. Attorney's Office, Kyle Nabak and Thomas Aliberti are the tribal liaisons, and they would be able to provide training in this area and provide certifications, federal certification, also known as special law enforcement certifications, and allow agencies to assist tribal agencies. Of course, it has to be on federal land, that they would be able to prosecute these individuals. So that would also be one of the other recommendations with the SLEC commissioning. I'm just going to go back to the 29-111 and maybe have like law enforcement leaders, tribal leaders, to have a sit down with representatives from the the representatives from the New Mexico Department of Public Safety, and kind of, just talk about, what is needed, and come up with an understanding of the 29-111 agreement, and possibly come up with a consensus that each agency or tribal leader would agree upon. And I think this would be able to have, it would provide the personnel from the New Mexico Department of Public Safety an understanding of what the police chiefs are wanting, or even the tribal leaders are wanting. And so I think these areas would be able to provide a lot of communication, and then actually working together, as a team, and then as law enforcement. Our mission in law enforcement is to serve and protect, and I think this is one way that it would help all agencies throughout New Mexico to to come together and help one another. And that's really just pretty much what my recommendations are. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Denise. I really appreciate it. And I just want to add a little bit of context there. I know that's a lot of information that Denise provided to the group. She did do a report for us, and we will put that on the clearinghouse so you can all take a look at the work product, because I think it's a little bit easier to follow and you can kind of see it laid out. But essentially, Denise did contact various tribal police departments and do one-on-one interviews with representatives of their agency to hear from them about their challenges. Some of the key challenges that we heard really were that the commissions were not being recognized in those district courts. And so that's just one thing I want to point out as one of the major findings. And the recommendations that she gave are some suggestions through her work for resolving that issue. Training is a big one, and so I just wanted to point that out. But at this time, thank you so much, Denise and Carmela, for participating. We appreciate your time. We can move on now to go into our breakout sessions. We will be meeting there until 4:40, and then when we come back, we'll do a quick report out. So we'll do that assignment now, and I'm just going to turn it over to Sherry. Sherry, if you want to provide any additional guidance to the group before we go into the breakout sessions, that will be helpful.
Hi, yeah, sure. Good afternoon, everybody. Now that I open the breakout rooms, you will see a pop-up inviting you to join your pre-assigned breakout room. If that doesn't pop up at the bottom of your screen, you will see a little box that says breakout rooms with 4 squares. You'll click that to enter your breakout room. If you would like to change rooms at any time, you'll also see an ask for help button at the bottom of your screen, which will alert me and we can move you into the room of your choice. If you are stuck in the main session, just unmute yourself or chat in the box, and Aurora and I will move you into the room you would like to be moved into. I am going to open all rooms right now, and then folks can start going into the rooms.
Hi, this is Niski. I'm not seeing anything on my screen to move into those chats.
Stephanie, what about you all? Are you able to see the breakout room?
No.
It doesn't give me the option, Sherry, to join a certain room.
Okay, if you can tell me again which rooms you all are in, I can start assigning you to those rooms, but it looks like it's not opening yet for you to choose.
Okay, Sherry, Geneva will be going to the data subcommittee. I will be going to the system subcommittee, and Eldred will go to the community impact. If you could assign us first so we can start facilitating discussion in those groups, and then we can work on getting the remaining participants.
Okay, will do. I'll do that right now.
I'm also placing in rooms as well.
Thank you, Aurora. And anyone else who needs to be assigned, please just enter the room in the chat and we will start moving you in.
So Sherry Songtree wants to go into community room. Beata, community committee, as well as Jessica. She's taking notes, so she's going into the community impact. Kelly Gilbrath wants to go into community as well. Angelica Archuleta, community as well. Jennifer Denetzdale is in systems. Tisa Bernali is in community.
Stephanie, I'm sorry, which room were you in?
The systems subcommittee.
Okay, I'm gonna move you right now so you can start that.
Okay, thank you.
As well as Jana Pfeiffer, Sherry is going into systems.
Okay, most of them are getting placed now. Secretary, which one did you want to be placed in? I
I'm
can
gonna
move you out.
move through all of them, but do you need me to stay here and help you guys?
No, I think we got it. There's only a few left.
Okay,
Move them in. So I am gonna place you now into the data subcommittee, okay?
that's great. And then I'll just rotate.
Okay.
I'll text you. Thanks.
For anybody that remains in the main session, just comment in the chat box which room you would like to be moved into, if any, and we can do that. Hi, Sophia. Did you need to be placed into one of the sessions?
Sorry, I placed her in community impact.
Okay, thank you. It looks like everybody else is assigned right now.
Yes, good job.
So that's kind of weird that it didn't show the breakout room for those who weren't assigned.
So they could pick themselves.
Yeah, like it looks like we have to do it manually for all of the ones who weren't pre-assigned. Like they didn't have an option to choose.
Right. Yeah, I did notice that, but I'm not sure why this one's not joining.
On her part, on the participant, it shows no audio connection for Sophia.
Oh, okay.
We'll just give it a minute though. And oh, they still have a while. They have almost like 40 minutes.
Yeah, that's a good amount of time.
Okay, I'm gonna go in between the rooms to see if anyone needs anything. But I'll be back. Let me know if you need anything.
Okay, I'll just stay in this room.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks. Hi, Sophia. Is there a room you'd like to be assigned to? Hi, Shelley. Which room would you like to be placed in?
Oh, I was on mute. I apologize. Eldred's room, the community.
Okay, no problem. Give me one moment.
Thank you. Sorry, I was working with CYFD real quick.
Oh, that's okay. I'm going to place you in right now.
Okay, thanks.
Good afternoon, Delegate Crotty. What meeting room would you like me to place you in?
Hi, Yaki. I'm on the phone with the breakout room, but I can't get there from my Zoom. If you could help me.
What breakout room are you in?
The data.
Okay, let me go ahead and switch.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Angelica. What room would you like me to place you in?
Hi, can I get put into the data room? I guess I got kicked out or like technical issues, so I just need to get logged back in. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Let me assign you right now.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Council Delegate Crotty. If you need to be placed into another room, just let us know.
Yeah, I'm waiting to be taken back to the data room. I had to log back on.
Okay, we'll get you placed in there now.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Are you in the break room, in the data room?
Yeah, so Shadeja, when I asked, so I go to that three dots and it says join breakout room. It just sends me to the community impact subcommittee.
Oh, how strange. I see that you're in it, but it says that you haven't joined. Let me see if I can move you out of that
I'm
room.
on the phone, like I called back in on the phone, but I'm trying to get back to it on my Zoom.
Okay, let me see what we can do on our end.
Okay.
Hey, Aurora, are you there?
Hi, Alger, do you need to get placed back?
Yeah, and do you think you can come in with me and share the screen or allow me to share the screen for the community impact?
Okay. Oh, you're in community right now?
Yes.
Okay, let me transfer you.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to move you into another room and then you're gonna have to come back to the main room. It won't let me.
Or Aurora, I can move myself back, but do you mind joining so to allow me like the screen sharing ability?
Yes, I'll join that one now.
Okay, cool. Hey, Aurora. Looks like I was putting the data one, so the community. Oh, there we go. Okay, cool. Okay, I'll see you in there.
Hey, Sherry, were you able to move her?
Hey, hold on 1 second. Someone's asking me to join their room. Sorry.
Okay, no problem.
Hold on. Hey, Aurora, are you still here?
Hey, I'm here, Sherry.
Oh, hey. It's weird. It's just showing only me in this room.
Oh, really? That is
Yeah, it's showing you as you're in the community impact subcommittee, but you haven't joined it, which is kind of weird.
Oh, I did go because I had to give Eldred hosting or screen share.
Oh, okay. That's what I was thinking. That's what I was assuming. Yeah, it wouldn't let me make Geneva co-host, so maybe we only have a certain amount because I had to go in and screen share for her.
Oh, maybe.
So that's what I was like, these are little things we like test run through. Like, you know, like I had to go in manually to each breakout session and assign Eldred and Geneva access to record.
Right.
So I'm thinking if we made them co-host before they went in, if they would have all the capabilities right off the bat like Stephanie did.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That's good to know for next time.
We just learn as we go.
Yeah. Were you able to assign council delegate Crotty?
It still just shows that she is in the data subcommittee. It says like she's not lit up green, if you could see the same thing on your screen. So it looks like she's not actually active in there. But when I joined, I think the community one, she was active in there. Like, no, in the systems, she's green in there because she's on the phone in there. So yeah. I think she's logged on her phone and computer, and that's why.
I see. So I see what happened. So she's just
see that because she's listed in both rooms, data and systems, but it's only the green light in systems.
Yeah, so that must be her Zooms. Her
Yeah,
Zoom.
that's what I'm thinking.
Okay. Should I try to, I can't even move her if I wanted to.
No, it just kind of has her like that, like you can't do anything because she's not active in it, I think, is the way it looks.
See. I know, I was like, I'm sorry, we're looking into it.
I mean, it's not that bad, able to assign. I think if everybody would have pre-picked their room, it would have been way easier because everybody would have just automatically been placed, including like staff. But it's okay. I mean, it worked out to just move them. I think with like secretary and them on, that's why I was kind of like, if we move her, she could get started and listen and we could just handle moving because not that many people stayed behind.
Yeah, it was pretty quick. And then it was exactly where they wanted to go. So we weren't having to like move people afterwards.
Exactly. And then I just basically gave secretary 15 minutes in each room. And then I would just text her right before and let her know I'm going to move her now just to make sure she wasn't speaking or anything. So she got to hit all 3 rooms as well, which is good.
Oh, that is good. You've got this down.
I know we're getting there, right? It's just like to that point where like, okay, we could run a whole Zoom.
I know. Put it on the resume.
A virtual hybrid event.
Yeah, I know, gosh. Summit, I've finally had time to kind of like organize everything today. So that's good, but we still haven't even turned in our contract.
There's like, it's like so many little details for it, but
I
it'll get
know.
there.
But people
Almost.
are trying to reserve rooms and they can't because we haven't submitted a contract.
Yeah, so
They're
that's
like,
what I'm thinking too.
yeah,
There's
they're
no block
emailing.
actually active.
Right. I'm like, I'll get back to you when I talk with the hotel.
I
But
know, we just have to like keep track of it and just go based off that. And then Pat's contract is almost done, so I'll have an extra set of hands.
oh, good,
Yes, think
good.
that'll be really helpful for all of it.
Oh, gosh, I've been getting all the sticker parts in too.
Oh man, that's so much. It's crazy to think about when like before you and Kaylee and Paqueen all got here, it was like me and Kelly doing all of this,
I know.
including what like our regular job is.
I
It's just
know, that
crazy to
is so
think of
crazy.
how long, right? Like how far we've come.
Yes, and it's still so busy.
I know, we're like one of the busier agencies. It's crazy.
Yeah.
One of the smallest
Yesterday,
ones, but one of the busiest.
I didn't even I didn't even eat. I ate an apple at like 4:30 yesterday. And between like running to DFA, mail, like and all the other things, I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't even know if I can like hold this up for another month.
That's how I was like this week, I think, especially with just Summit, like being pulled into Summit now, and then all the MMIW stuff. It was kind of like yesterday, I didn't eat until we got to my mom's because it was our summer feast day. So we went to have a family feast together.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't eat until we got there. And I'm like, oh, I'm just going to have a little bit of enchiladas that I took. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, is I ate like 4 bowls of one of each item and like pies.
Yes.
Oh gosh, this is what happens when you don't eat.
That pie looked so good. Was it plum?
Yes, my mom made them yesterday, just right before we all got there. And then she sent extra home that I had with coffee this morning. It was so good. I miss it so much.
Yeah, plum, my dad, because he worked in Poake, so
Mhm.
he would always bring me the plum pies, and that like a whole one.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
the little lady would sell them like by the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, I'd eat like half of it in the first night.
Oh man, I can make them. My grandpa from Okeowinga taught us all how his mom's recipe. So it's a really old recipe because he's already like in his 80s, and he taught us her recipe, and now we can make the pies. And oh my gosh, but Jonathan and Trinity don't really like them, so it's dangerous for me to make them.
Yeah, you'll be the only one.
And I will. I'm like, I better make it smaller because like you're cooking it with lard and everything. And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, little pie."
That's so funny.
I don't even feel guilty most of the time.
Just enjoy it while we can, I guess.
As long as I'm staying active.
Yeah. Now you've been doing good with your runs and stuff. I'm like, oh wow, Sherry went on another hike. It looks so nice.
We've been going, like we go every day for a run. Lately in the evening, like closer to 8 because it's just too hot.
Yeah.
Lazy to wake up before 7 and go. And then hiking, I've just really been trying to get like active and stay active and make Trinity go with us.
That's really good. It's nice once you're like there and you're already doing it. I guess I enjoy hiking, but like you said, it's been so hot, and then it's been raining a lot over here.
Right.
So and to go for a walk after work, it starts raining around like 5:36.
Right, and you're just stuck in the house all night.
Yeah, so I'm like, well, maybe it wasn't meant to be. Just kidding.
That's what I always say. I'm like, I'll just do an indoor workout, and I'm all, nah, I'll just watch Netflix.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe like 10 squats while we watch my Netflix show.
For real, I'm like, that like should count for something. 10 squats and like Pilates for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Until I forget. Okay, in 1 minute, I am gonna click the button to close the breakout rooms, and that's gonna give everybody 60 seconds. So I'm gonna update the group chat real fast.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna close them out now. Nobody said anything else. I hope they're not speaking still.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh
2
wait, we
minutes.
can do, yeah.
Okay. I'm like, oh, crap, as I hit it. I'll give it a minute.
Okay.
I just set like all the alarms on my phone so that I can make sure to like kind of keep it even.
Yeah.
2 minutes, 1 minute, 20 minutes. I have like 40 alarms.
Off work. 30 minutes.
So who's all going for the site visit tomorrow? DOT is going to be there for sure, right? A few of them?
Yeah, did you want to go? Deputy had wanted me to be there and I wasn't planning on it. So at some point I'm gonna take a state vehicle because
Right.
it'd be my luck I get like a chip on my windshield or something.
Or like even like a nail in your tire. That's like what always happens to me. I'm like, I'll just take my own car. I'm like, no. But I wouldn't mind going, but there's going to be a press conference happening with APCG that I'm going to be listening in on. It's also happening in Albuquerque, but I'll probably just join virtually. So unless you need anything, just give me a call or text during that.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, they'll have the AV. We'll figure all that out. I need to send a reminder for that contract that it needs to be sent by 5 today. And I sent the food options and list. Did you see it?
I didn't. I haven't looked at my email like all afternoon though. I've just been like all over the place.
That's okay. Everything's in Dropbox, but I started to make like an ongoing to-do list and like materials. But wait, we can talk about it all tomorrow.
Okay, that works. There's that alarm. Okay, I'm going to close them now. I'm so hesitant to close them and someone be speaking in one of the rooms.
I know.
I'm gonna just wait until like someone gives me a thumbs up or like a few more seconds and then I'll do it.
Okay. Just 4:45 maybe.
So it's been like 3 minutes over now, so that's why I'm kind of just like just because they want to come back and report out on what they've chosen. I think they're picking their chairs and co-chairs.
Oh.
So hopefully we don't go too long. I'm going to close now. Just gonna hit the button. I'm like so scared to do it. It's like when I do a press release.
Right.
Okay. It's done. They're gonna start coming back in now.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, hello everyone. Good to see you all again. I see that I think everyone is back in the main room. Okay, I heard a weird noise, but I think we're good. Okay, so at this point in the agenda, we're about done with our meeting. I know we have about 15 minutes left. With the time remaining, I just want to make sure that all the committees can report back the couple items that we requested specifically to report back on. I'm going to put my screen up here. We want everyone to let us know if you decided on a subcommittee chairperson and also the monthly meeting time for your subcommittee group. We'll record this and also send out an email with this information. At this time, I will go ahead and do the report out for the systems subcommittee. Our chairperson for the systems subcommittee will be Delilah Tenorio. And our monthly meeting time will be the second Thursday of every month from 1 to 4 p.m. So our next meeting as a task force, will be August 12th at 1 o'clock. So August 12th at 1 o'clock will be the systems subcommittee next meeting. And following that, we will meet the second Thursday of every month from 1 to 4 p.m. I will next turn it over to the data subcommittee for your report out. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. This is Linda Thompson giving you an update for the data subcommittee takeaways. Our chair is Chastity Sandoval. Our co-chair is Deputy Chief Taft Tracy. Our next meeting will be August 13th, which is Friday from 1 to 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. As of yet, I do not believe we have a monthly meeting time set yet. But we will set that up, I'm sure. But we'll be working on our Excel spreadsheet. We'll be answering all that information separately and then bringing it together for a discussion on the 13th. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. That's good to hear. I'm glad we have a couple co-chairs for that committee. Then the final committee is the Community Impact Subcommittee.
Hello again, everyone. So for the community impact, we have pushed forward the names of Maddie Jim and Beata Sosi Pena, and they will be our co-chairship. Also, we didn't, like the last group, we didn't necessarily pin down a particular time, but we're looking at August 10th. So possibly every second Tuesday of the month, but again, still to be determined. In the meeting itself as well, we were able to open the Excel spreadsheet, looking at what it looks like, kind of answering some questions here and there. And also we were looking at the first question about shelter. I'll pass it to Jessica, my partner in note-taking, if she has anything else to add for the subcommittee.
Yeah, I just had to add that we're going to send out a doodle poll for the August the 10th for the next meeting. And then in between now and then, everybody's going to look through the spreadsheet to see where they, which parts they can best provide their opinions and assistance. And then we may look toward moving from Excel to a Google spreadsheet so that we can all collaboratively work on the one document together. And then, yeah, I think that was pretty much all that we got covered. Somebody said something about Jamboard. I'm unfamiliar with what that is, but I have that written down in my notes.
Excellent. Thank you, Jessica and Eldred, for that report out. And so to the subcommittee chairs, if you could definitely stay in touch with the department. I think some follow-up items from today for our group is to get all of our subcommittee members on one email chain for any updates or resource sharing, anything that comes up. So as IAD staff, we'll record that and try to do that for every subcommittee, so at least you can all continue to share information and communicate and collaborate before our next meeting. Also with the Excel spreadsheet, that's great. I'm happy to hear that people are tailoring that document to meet the needs of your subcommittee. I encourage that. And for that, I did tell that to our subcommittee chairperson as well, that that is something that we can always change and revise to meet the needs that exist with the different issue areas. So at this time, I just wanted to give, I think at this point we're ready to do our closing remarks and closing statements. I know we're a little early. Before we do that though, is there anyone, any questions, comments, best practices, anything that kind of came out of your meeting today that you think should be shared with the larger group? I just want to give a quick opportunity for folks to share any general feedback on the process or anything else you want to share before we wrap up. Okay, that's good. Thank you all. I'm going to now invite Council Delegate Amber Karate to please share with us a few closing remarks. I know that you agreed to give a closing, and I really just want to thank you for volunteering to do that. And we really appreciate your attendance today, your participation, and I look forward to hearing your closing remarks.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Kia ani nestle do belagana bashushin destiny deshachedo belagana deshanale Shay Amber Kinas Bakrati Yanisha Tohatsoi Danacha. I'm the Navajo Nation Council. I'm the chair of the Sexual Assault Prevention Subcommittee, and we've worked a lot of sweat and tears with Secretary Trujillo and her team. So I appreciate the expansion of the task force and the original task force members with First Lady Cecilia Nez. We appreciate all your time and dedication. I think collectively why we're here speaks volumes. We want to protect and prevent violence from happening in our communities. We want to be the generation that that is able to heal, and we do that collectively. So whether it's on Navajo Nation, our Pueblos, our Apache Nations, or in our urban areas, we're reclaiming that space and creating a trauma-informed response on how we deal with systemic issues of racism, social injustice, and really the dehumanization of our Indigenous people. So collectively, and with that in mind, I want to just close by saying I pray and I send you healing energy. This is a heavy lift. You already have so much on your plate, but I believe that the Holy Ones and our Creator have placed us here in this time and this space, and with our skills and our ability to work together to provide, the seeds of change. And I think as we enjoy this monsoon moisture and this weather, we realize and reconnect on how when there's one relative missing, it has a ripple effect in the community. And so as we look to our children and our elders to protect them, I look to you as leaders in your community, whether you're elected or a clan leader or here just living this earth as a five-finger person. You have what is needed to do this work together. So I want to thank the team, everyone on the call, and as we move forward and provide some of the answers to the data questions and collection, looking at what are some of the systemic issues, and most importantly, our community involvement, making sure that the families are supported. And we'll continue on our end to make sure that the Navajo Nation establishes a missing persons unit, and that we continue to make this family-centered, survivor-centered, because our hope is that every relative returns home. And in our prayers, that's what we pray for, to give them the mental strength to come back home, to keep fighting. And if they're not physically able to come home, that mentally that they're strong enough for one day to come back, and in so many instances where we find that our relatives have passed on, that at least we can recover them. And that's what we did last week with Cecilia, and working with her family for over 2 months or 2 years. We know that other families continue to look and feel the pain, and at least they know they're not alone anymore. So yeah, I appreciate everyone on this task force moving this action, and really it's about healing and that collective healing. So be well, travel well, and just always restore yourself, and just be grateful for this moisture and bless yourself, because it's cooling the earth. So we always say when you cool the earth, that helps you prevent any type of heartache or mental unrest or any physical harm. So right now we're just cooling the earth. So I just would like to end with that, and I appreciate the opportunity for this closing remark.
Thank you, Delegate Crotty, for those closing remarks. It means a lot to hear you talk and just hear the words that you're saying. It means a lot, and I just want to thank you for that. And before we close, I just want to do one last thing and share this posting. There is a walk tomorrow honoring Ella Mae Begay. This is hosted by First Nations Community Health Source. Registration starts at 8:30 tomorrow morning. So if you are able, this is also how we support one another, by showing up and spreading the word. Please share this if you're able to, and attend if you're able to, more importantly. And if you're not, as Delegate Crotty just stated, send your prayers to the family, and not just her family, but all of the families out there who are continuing to look for their relatives. So with that, I just want to thank you all. And Secretary Trujillo, I don't know if you wanted to say any final remarks, but I am done. Thank you.
No, Stephanie, I think Council Delegate Crotty did that for us. And just again, want to thank everybody, Hercam, and continue to be safe. We'll reach out to you, but that's it. Appreciate it.
Okay. Take care, everyone. We'll be in touch.
Bye, Sengiriho.
Stephanie, I don't know if you wanted to stay on as a team and do a debrief.
That's fine, Secretary. I think that'll be fine.
So the recording is still going, is that?
I think we can pause it. Is that right, Sherry?
Yeah, let me stop the recording now.
All right.